The question is some version of why can't we grow more quickly? 20% A players, 60% B players, 20% C players. What does it say if they say, no, we hired them as A players, we just made them C players? If you can't change them or what they do, then you're not left with very much more other than terminate. They have to go. Get some assessments figured out. That's a difficult question. Because you're going to say, well, of course I'm an A player. We have to maximize the potential of all of our people. Hi again. In every team, you'll find a mix of talent. Of course you will. Some team members shine. A players, right? They're willing, they're able, they communicate and collaborate well, they're proactive, they take ownership of their actions, ownership of their outcomes. Basically all round good eggs, right? Marvelous. A players, love them. You might already have a few team members, maybe some names have sprung to mind who fit that description. Well, at least I hope you do. Others perhaps fall into the B player category. They're competent, yes, but they need a little bit more steer than our star A players. Maybe a few B players on your team have likely just come to mind too. I'm sure they have. And unfortunately, we also have those C players on our team. They're characterized, I guess, by underperformance and inconsistency, disengagement perhaps, low commitment, and quite often, almost always, poor alignment with the company and its core values. But what does this really mean for your leadership and your team's success? How can you hire and develop more A players and fewer B players? Well, good question, and that's exactly why we put together this episode to help you figure out how to build a high-performing team and finally stop managing and start leading. Welcome to Stop Managing and Start Leading, the podcast for leaders who need to stop managing and for managers who want to start leading. I'm your host, Antonio Garrido, the founder and president of My Daily Leadership. I'm a serial entrepreneur, I'm a business founder and leader just like you. I'm also a 3-time author. I've led businesses from ground level startups all the way through to Fortune 60s with, I guess, billions in revenue and thousands of employees. What if I told you that the secret to exceptional leadership is much easier and much closer than you think? Every leader and every manager has the potential to become exceptional, just the kind of leader that they, their people and their business truly deserve. And you are no exception. You simply need to discover the mindset, the tools, the competencies, the habits to unlock that potential. And that's where we come in. If you haven't already, therefore, say hello to the A player on our team, the subscribe button. Please subscribe to the My Daily Leadership YouTube channel today for actionable insights and practical tools in our podcast episodes that drop every single week. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, don't forget to become equally acquainted with the follow button. Both will help you level up your leadership. Do it now. What I'm about to go through with you today is, I think, one of the most important leadership principles and lessons that you could learn. Years ago, a group chairman of mine asked me what I thought was our most valuable resource throughout the whole organization. Well, being a good leader, having learned from the best, I said, our people. And he agreed. Okay, a good start. I was maybe thinking of saying cash or time or our customers, but I resisted, and you should too. It's your people. He then asked me how well we were utilizing our number one organizational resource. Now, so he asked me what our number one organizational resource was. I said people. He said yes. And then he asked me how well we were utilizing them. Okay, tricky, but pretty well, I think, was my reply. Oh, good, he said. How'd you know? No, I'm not sure. I said. Well, let's find out, shall we? He then proceeded to have the exact same conversation with me that I'm about to have with you. Okay, so you might, I imagine, find the following rather distressing, right? So get yourself a nice warming cup of chamomile tea before we get into this one, because it might be upsetting. And perhaps your bestest teddy or blankie too might help. Basically, strap yourself in for this one. It's going to be a bumpy and almost definitely uncomfortable ride, I promise. So if you typically join us on YouTube, you'll know that we always introduce you to a critical leadership model or two. And we do that by drawing them out live, real time. We're really visual learners here at My Daily Leadership. We're VLs, visual learners. If you're listening on a podcast platform because you're much more of an auditory learner, what we call our ALs, that's perfectly okay too. But you might, if you really want to see the content we're about to talk through, if you want to see it drawn out in real time, do switch over to YouTube now. You can watch it later. The models that we draw in this episode and all future episodes, as usual, will also be available to download online at www.mydailyleadership.com/podcast. So, shall we? Okay, so here's today's model. We always, as usual, start with a rather interesting, I hope, question. Here's the question, which maybe you and certainly billions of other leaders are asking. It's a good question. It's a big question. And the question is some version of why can't we grow more quickly? Most leaders think about that day in, day out, sometimes minute by minute. So why can't we grow more quickly? It's a great question. I'm going to give you the answer. So let's go back to what I was saying just a few seconds ago about A players, B players, and C players. So here's here's the start of today's model. So if you could imagine a standard distribution bell chart. Now, of course, we didn't invent standard distribution bell charts. Let's see where we're going to go, because I think we add a few little interesting twists to it. So standard distribution bell chart. Let's imagine you have 100 people in your organization. You may have 1,000, 10,000, who knows, 100,000 perhaps. And maybe you've got 10. The principle is the same. So let's imagine we have 100 people in our organization. Let's imagine that you're the CEO of an organization with 100 people. Yeah, you may already be that. Okay, so I'm going to have a conversation with you now, just like the group chairman had a conversation with me all of those years ago. So he got out a piece of paper and he got out his pen and he started drawing what we're drawing. And he said, "Hey, Antonio, how many people work for the organization?" Let's just pretend we said 100, right? There were many more than that, but to keep it easy, I struggle with maths, right? I got to take my socks off when I count over 10. I think you get the idea, right? So let's just say there's 100, helps me deal with percentages that way. All right, standard distribution bell chart. Okay, good. How have we done with that? Yeah, not bad. All right, I'm quite pleased with that. Okay, what that means is standard distribution bell chart. If we've got 100 people that work at our organization, right? We've got some A players up here. And there's probably about 20% of them. So 20% of 100, that's 20. You see now instantly why I decided to be 100 people in this business. Okay, so that means we've probably at this end too. Okay, we've got our C players here. And again, 20% of those chaps. So there's 20 of those. And that means, of course, in terms of our B players, we've got 60%, 60 of those chaps. Standard distribution bell chart, 20% A players, 60% B players, 20% C players. You've seen that as a principle a million times. Okay, so when we're talking to our new clients or prospective clients, we show them this too. We draw this out. We say, how many people work at the organization, George? I'm always tempted. I once saw an interview with the Pope. And somebody asked him, said, how many people work at the Vatican? And he went, about half, which I thought was a really good answer. But anyway, so we'll talk to a new prospect. We'll say, how many people work at the organization, George? He'll say 100. We'll draw this out. We'll say, okay, well then you've almost definitely got 20% A players, you've got 20%, 60% B players, 20% C players, right? You go, okay, yeah, fine, whatever you say. And I say, okay, good. Give me the name of one or two of your A players. I knew who they were when the chairman asked me. You probably know who they are. I'm asking you, and our clients and prospects know who they are when we ask them. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, we're going to say Cornelia, and we're going to say Alice. Okay, good. So we've got a couple of A players, Cornelia and Alice. So there are more of them, but I'll just say name two of them. So we're just going to write Cornelia and Alice. I'm going to go, okay, cool. I'm going to say, give me the name of a few of your C players. So we're going to say Tom and Bob. And I say, okay, great. Give me another one. And they'll say Mary. And I'll say, okay, give me one more. And they'll say Liz. Okay, you get the idea. That normally CEOs know who their star A players, they know the names. Even if they've got 100 people, they know them off the top of their head. Who are the C players, they know them off the top of their head. We could just as easily here have put Catherine, Grace. You get the idea, right? They know who the A players are, so should you. And they tend to know who the C players are, and so should you. Okay, good. What I'll then do is I'll say to them, okay, well, tell me a little bit about Tom. And they'll say, okay, Tom does this, Tom does that, Tom does that. I say, okay, cool. How long has Tom been with you? And let's pretend that they said, okay, Tom has been with us for 3 years. I'll say, okay, good. Tell me about Bob. What does Bob do? How long has he been with you? He's been with us 18 months. I said, okay, cool. How long has Mary been with you? She's been with us for 9 months. And then how long has Liz been with you? And they'll say 5 years. Okay. Then I'll say, what's the CEO of George? Let me write it down so I don't forget. This is George with 100 employees, remember, right? I'll say, okay. I'll say, difficult question, George. Let's talk about Tom and Bob and Mary and Liz. I'll say, Tom's been with you, he's sales management, he's been 3 years. Bob looks after manufacturing, he's been here 18 months. Mary works in customer services, she's been with you 9 months. And Liz, she's works in accounts, and she's been with you 5 years, right? George will go, yeah. And then I'll ask them this question. This is the question that my boss asked me, I ask our clients, now I'm asking you to ask yourself. The question is this, specifically around these chaps here. And whilst we've only mentioned 4, we know there are 20 of them. But the question is this, did you hire them that way? Did you hire them like this? Or did you make them like this? And what's the this we're talking about? The fact that it's C players. Did you hire them as C players? One hopes not. Or have you made them into C players? One hopes not. And if you think about it, there's not really a good answer to that question. Because assuming then we're talking to a prospect of ours, hey George, did you hire them like that? Well, what does it say for the leadership and management if they say, yes, we hired them like that? What does it say if they say, no, we hired them as A players, we just made them C players? Well, that's not good either. Or what if they say, well, I don't know, or a bit of both? None of those ideas are good. I hope you're starting to understand why can't we grow more quickly has got something to do with your people. I think that's fairly self-evident. I'll then ask them another question. So the first question is, did you hire them like that, or have you made them like that? Next question I might say is, okay, well, what would happen, ostensibly or even theoretically, if we could take a few of these C players and turn them into B players? What would happen if we took a few of these, maybe B pluses, and turn them into A minuses, right? What would happen if we could shift all of this over a little? Yeah, it's very self-evident and it's obvious that good things would happen. I said, okay, well, the first thing we've got to do about Tom and Bob and Mary and Liz and all the others is that we have to act. A-C-T. accept, change, or terminate. We either, George, accept that, hey, listen, that's just how life is. Tom and Bob and Mary, that's, you just have to accept some C players. And I'm going to say, we can't accept that. So that's not an option. So whilst I'm saying we have to act, we can't accept. Okay, well then we either have to change Tom and Bob and Mary and Liz, we have to change them, coaching, development, or what they do. Maybe you need some more forklift truck drivers, right? And if you can't change them or what they do, then you're not left with very much more other than terminate. They have to go. Now, every firing is a failure. So Tom and Bob and Mary and Liz, they're a failure. They're either a failure of recruiting, a failure of onboarding, a failure of the culture, failure of management. I mean, it's a failure all the way around. And whose responsibility is that? Well, it's yours. You're in charge, right? This is your submarine. So that's a problem. When you think about the B players, okay, the B players, it's 60% B players, these similarly can be broken down. So you'll probably have 20% of these 60 as your B pluses. You'll have 60% of these Bs as your Bs. And then you'll have 20% as B minuses. Right? And you can continue to, get more and more and more and more refined with how you're thinking about things. But if you want to make a big change real quickly, we've got to do something about these C players, and then we've got to do something about these B minus and, perhaps these B players. So, well, how will we do that? Well, great question. We're going to come back to this in a second. Okay, so we're going to press pause for a moment, and we're going to talk about something super interesting, super dear and close, near and dear to my heart, and it's the My Daily Leadership book. Here it is, in all of its glory. Really proud. This is my third book, but I'm really, really proud of this book. If you get your hands on it, you'll see that it's a powerful roadmap for leadership success. Written by yours truly. There's even a free photo on the back. We use lots of Vaseline on the lens, so you can hardly tell it's me. It looks quite handsome from a distance. So it's been written by me, and it's filled with essential insights, real-world examples, thought-provoking journal prompts, actionable tools, all to help you navigate your leadership journey with a bit more confidence and a bit more clarity. And it's available wherever you get all of your best books from, including major audiobook platforms. I also personally recorded the audiobook version for this one, by the way, which may seal the deal for you, I hope. Well, anyway, maybe send you running in the other direction. Let me just find something, just maybe this will tip the balance. Here's what our good friend and extraordinary leader, Denise Key. Hi, Denise. What Denise says about us: the commercial world is increasingly complex, and the demands placed on the executive teams are more challenging than ever. What most leaders need right now is a clear framework for strategic and tactical success. Leaders need to future-proof themselves, their business, and this book gives leaders across the world, the whole commercial spectrum, from small to large, from simple to complex, from new to old, a clear daily guide, a clear and powerful daily leadership template to follow. She also then goes on to say, if you are a leader or if you have aspirations to be, I urge you to read this book. Well, God bless you, Denise. Thank you for that. So give it a whirl. Be like Denise. Go and grab your copy today. And don't forget, as ever, to share your thoughts, questions, comments, and aha moments about this episode in the comments, please. So let's get back to our model. So thanks for those lovely words, Denise. I have another little model I'm starting here. We're going to add some other pieces to it. Take a moment and think about all of the people in your organization. For our visual learners, leaders, that's really going to be easy for you. For the auditories, what we're going to do is we're going to list all of our people down, and then we're going to write next to it 3 columns: column A, column B, and column C, or actually A players, B players, and C players. What I'd like you to then do is just go down the list of the names, right, as you're going along and thinking, is this an A player, is this a B player, is this a C player? You get the idea. Just as you're going along, think about all of the individuals and think about, the last 6 months, how, are they A player category, B player category, C player category? Think about that. What that will then give you is the closer to the real number. You might have 9 A's, for example, 15 B's, for example, and 3 C's. And of those 15 B's, you might have 6 of them with a potential. Okay. So looking at this organization here, we've got 9 A's, 15 B's, and 3 C's. So that's not so bad. But what if it was 3 A's, 9 B's, and 15 C's? That's a whole different kettle of fish, right? So for yourself, figure out what the actual numbers, instead of just that standard distribution, 20% A players, 60% B players, 20% C players, actually figure that out. How can you figure that out? Well, again, get some assessments figured out. Apply some assessments to have your team take an assessment. Whilst you're at it, maybe even first, take your own assessment. Why? Because another question that you might find uncomfortable when we often, the question was asked of me, and so and we asked the same question of all of our prospects and clients, and so I'm going to ask the same of you. Are you an A player, a B player, or a C player? Now, that's a difficult question, because you're going to say, well, of course I'm an A player. Why? Well, because everybody kind of thinks that, that they're a great driver. We can't all be great drivers, right? So I know that you think you're an A player, and I'm sure that you possibly are, but, wouldn't it be good to actually figure out? Because one of the reasons that you have so many C players potentially, and you're not doing much with them, potentially, in other words, you've either hired them like that, or you've made them like that, potentially, is because maybe you're not quite the strong A player as you hope to be. So take an assessment. Take an assessment so that we know where you are. If the assessment says that you're an A player, then I'm going to believe everything that then comes out of your mouth with regard to the rest of the people. Sometimes we'll have a manager come to us and say, hey, we've got a problem with George, right? We have to use the word George, the name George. So let's say Trisha. I don't think anyone called Trisha works for us. Got a problem with Trisha, and if the manager that's complaining about Trisha is an A player, I'm going to pay a bit more attention to that, the fact that he or she has a problem with Trisha. If, however, the manager is a B player, I'm going to be a bit more guarded, because am I going to take the word of a B player about whether or not somebody else is a B player? I don't know, that's a trickier conversation. So how do we make these things much more objective, much less subjective? Take an assessment. If I can encourage you to do one thing, it's get your people checked, get your people benchmarked. Certainly at your level, the rest of the exec team, and one level down. That would be a good place to start. We've got lots of assessments. Doesn't have to be our assessment. I'm not trying to do that. But have a look. Make sure that the things that they're assessing for are the right things to be looking at. Anyway, okay. So now we've decided, either because we've gone through the exercise and we've defined what A players look like in your organization, what B players and what C players look like. You've gone through the list and you know who everybody is. Here's the next thing I would have you do. So let's think about how do we take these individuals and what do we do with them? Let's think about this for a second. So we have our A players here, we have our B players here, and we have our C players here. Not drawn particularly well to scale, but you get the idea, right? What do we do with them on a day in, day out basis? So let's imagine we have 2 options. We have more than that, but let's just take the 2 big ones, coach and manage. Well, do we want to manage our A players? Do we need to manage our A players very, very tightly, very, very closely? Well, we don't really, do we? So that our A players only need managing, 30% but they still need developing and coaching. So the split there is manage 30, coach 70. Great. So we're going to coach our A players a lot, and we're going to manage them a little. Makes sense. Our B players, we will kind of split our time, attention between those guys. 50% coaching, 50% managing. Makes sense. What about our C players? Well, our C players, we're only going to coach a little, maybe 30%, but we're actually going to hold them in very close hold in terms of management. So we're going to manage them 70% of the time. Close hold. Not because, we want to micromanage anybody, and nobody wants to be micromanaged. Of course they don't. But the point about this is we have to do that whole accept, change, or terminate, that ACT thing, accept, change, or terminate. So we're going to see if we can manage them a lot, coach them a little, figure out whether or not they can become B players. And if not, then we get to that unfortunate termination piece. Okay, that's not what I want for you or for anybody, but we have to do something about those C players. Why? Because if you remember the question that we asked ourselves right at the beginning of today's episode, which is, why can't we grow more quickly? Well, one of the reasons is these guys right here, and how we're also then coaching and managing these guys, and then how we're coaching and managing these guys is the answer to it. In terms of the coach, in our next episode, is it our next episode or the one? In one of our upcoming episodes, we, either the next one or the one following that, we're going to teach you how to coach these individuals. A lot of our customers and clients, they say that they would coach their people if they knew how to do it. Well, actually, they do know how to do it. They just don't know that they know how to do it. And we're going to introduce you guys to the cigar model of coaching. So that's in a future episode, cigar model. So we'll teach you how to coach these people. So that's a future episode. I'm not sure if it's the next one or the one after that. So future episode. So look out for that. We're going to give you the ins and outs, as my wife calls it, the thread through the needle of coaching. So we'll do that. And then last point to make, in terms of all of our colleagues or all of our employees, we have to, whether they're A, B's or C's, we have a responsibility. So I'm just going to show you another super quick model that's coming up in another future episode, where we have to maximize the potential of all of them. So we want our A's to be strong A's, we want our B's to become A's, right? We want our C's to become B's, right? We have to maximize the potential of all of our people. And that's got something to do with coaching. Just mentioned we're going to talk about that in a future episode. It's got something to do with managing. So this is how to maximize the potential of our people. We've got to somehow link coaching and managing them. We've got to do something to do with improving their skills. So it's got something to do with training them. So that helps maximize their potential. And then we've got to do something to do with their emotional intelligence, EQ. And then EQ comes back to coaching. So we've got to coach them well, we've got to manage them well, we've got to train them well, and we've got to help them become much more self-aware and emotionally intelligent. So what does that mean? Well, let's come back to our original model and to answer the question, why can't I grow more quickly? Hoping that's that looking like it's in the middle. I hope it is. The answer to the why can't I grow more quickly is because if you don't do anything about this, here's the sad truth. The sad truth is it's because what holds you back is stronger than what pulls you forward. So what holds you back, these guys here, is stronger than what pulls you forwards, these guys here. And that includes, you ready for it? This is the bit I told you you're going to need some chamomile tea, maybe find yourself with a piece of toast. you. Okay, so a rather upsetting thought, perhaps. We'll do more of that this next time and time after that, but I just want to say, look, thanks once again for tuning in to Stop Managing and Start Leading in My Daily Leadership podcast. Whatever your reason for listening or watching today, I do hope, I am quite confident that you saw something of value today, even if it's just one tip or just one piece of mindset that maybe improves your leadership ability by only 1%. Remember, there's immense power in marginal gains over time, 1%, every day, 1%. There's also power in community too, remember. So please do share your questions, your insights, your topic suggestions in the comments. That's if you're watching on YouTube. And we will do something about them, I promise. And whilst you're down there, give this video a like and subscribe too. Share it, be gorgeous. And for our auditory learners, our ALs, you're only getting half the story. Today there's a lot to see that's hard to describe. So head over to your YouTube channel where today's episode really comes to life with visuals and notes and models and drawings and all of that good stuff. And all of our models are always available to download at My Daily Leadership, www.mydailyleadership.com/podcast. Now, in the next episode, we'll introduce you to one of the most impactful leadership models in our toolkit, the Maximize Potential, which is the one we just had a look at very, very briefly. Once you learn it, there really is no going back. Your leadership forever transformed. Yes, really, no exaggeration. I'm Antonio Garrido with My Daily Leadership. Thanks for being here. I genuinely thank you for that. Until next time, by wisdom and effort, go be a great leader. See you next time.